How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Good. I'm Jordan. It's a
Nice to meet
pleasure
you.
to talk to you. I've been playing Do the Dance for quite a few months now, actually, on my
Awesome.
radio
Thank you.
station. Yes. So, where are you right now?
I'm currently in the Bay. I'm in California. Um,
Okay.
yeah.
Excellent. Is the weather good out there?
Today's a little overcast, but it's still pleasant. Yesterday was a gorgeous day. So yeah.
Nice. Excellent. Well, thank you for taking the time to chat with me about your new album coming out, Siddharth, on July 28th.
Yep.
How excited are you about this new album?
I can't wait for people to hear it. It's been great just releasing the couple pieces so far. We had so much fun making this whole album, every song. The whole process was really kind of like magical. There was a lot of serendipity in it, and that kind of spirit exists at the very core of it. So I'm just excited to share it with the world for sure.
Absolutely. And so you started learning how to sing and music at the age of 3, and that was your first performance on stage was at 3? So
Yeah.
you have no stage fright then at all, right?
No, I almost feel like I feel more comfortable on stage than like anywhere else, really.
Right. And so
Yeah.
you're opening or you're the supporting act for Bon Iver this August.
Yeah, yeah. So Justin Vernon was actually kind of one of the integral pieces in the making of this album. It was produced by this producer from Minneapolis named Ryan Olson.
Right.
And Justin played a guitar on a bunch of the songs, and was one of the main people in those first 3 days that we jammed. So soon there, or like a couple months ago, probably in February, he hit me up asking me if I'd like to open for the fall tour, and I was obviously very excited about that.
Right. How
Yeah.
was that experience working with him? Was it kind of like a dream come true of yours?
It was awesome. I've been a Bon Iver fan since I was in college back in like 2009 when he was first putting out those initial projects. And I've always just deeply loved the vulnerability in his music, and also how he's always pushing boundaries and kind of like, existing in new spaces sonically. I connected with Ryan Olson, the producer, very randomly through Instagram, kind of in the middle of pandemic. And he was like, "Yo, come out to Minneapolis. Let's make some music over here." I'd never been, but I ended up going out there with zero expectations in like May or June of 2021, near the tail end of the pandemic. And one of the first people he introduced me to was Justin. And it was like 6 to 8 of us over the course of 3 days. We just jammed a whole bunch. And it was like so joyful because no one had got to be in the same room as others in a while because of the pandemic. So just 3 days of making music freely without thinking, and kind of like no ego. And it was awesome. Yeah.
Do you feel like your music and his music like connects? There's similarities?
I think so. I think more than anything else, I think the spirit of vulnerability, I think sonically is quite different the way I, sing, and kind of the spaces I exist in, especially for my music. There's this kind of undercurrent of my Indian classical music background that flows through everything in a way, subtly. But yes, definitely in spirit. I think there's like a deep vulnerability in the music that I write, and the how I express myself and the messaging that I have, which have always deeply resonated with his music as well.
Sure. And I looked into Carnatic. Is that right? How I'm saying?
That's
Okay.
right.
And it's so deep and goes back thousands of years and is
Yeah.
deeply spiritual. So how can you like explain that to someone, or even if you're not of that lineage, you were taught by your mother, who was, I think, taught by her father.
That's right. My grandfather. Yeah.
Right. So if you're not like of that lineage, how can you even wrap your head around that type of music?
Yeah. I mean, it's a very layered, complex form, with these really nuanced kind of boundaries and set of rules or whatever. But for me, I think the thing that I kind of have taken from it the most is the melodic constructs. And melodically, it's quite different from Western music in that there are inflections and bends into notes that we normally don't hit in Western music, that kind of exist almost between between notes. I think my goal is to have it exist in ways in contemporary Western music and modern music, the way I've done it in this album. So it's definitely going to be a new sound, or there's going to be these little moments that make people's ears kind of like, just like pricks the mind or the ear in a certain way. But that's going to be my way of kind of introducing it. There's this idea of a raga in Carnatic music that is basically like a melodic galaxy, if you may. And it is, there's just a lot of room to improvise and take from it these different melodic ideas. I really have to like speak on it for like a good hour to like kind of like dig
Well,
into.
that's exactly. I was trying
Yeah.
to read about it and it was just going over my head. I was like, this is very intricate sounding.
I think the best thing though, and again, so my goal is the best way for someone to get introduced to a form of music is just by listening to it. And with the understanding for me, like I do know that it's a very specific form aesthetically, so for people who are not used to listening to it, it will feel very foreign. But for me, every opportunity that I get, my goal is to like let my different influences kind of swim together. And Carnatic music is one of the main ones. So for example, when we did our Tiny Desk, that music form kind of swims in and out of the set. And my hope is that it will make people curious to want to listen to it more. And then they can take from it what they do, they can dive as deep as they would like.
Sure. Isn't that the beauty of music too? Like you don't, like even if there's a language barrier or any, there's still that melody and that feeling that people can connect with.
Yes, it's
And
ultimately sound, and sound doesn't really see language or anything. It's just a physical force, yeah, it transcends all those barriers for sure.
I was watching one of your performances of Do the Dance, and you just had this big smile on your face. Like you're just
Yeah,
so happy to be performing that song. And the first time I heard it too, I got goosebumps. And I had
thank
just
you.
like, I was like, this emotion, like, what? This is just beautiful. So
Thank
it
you.
definitely, transcended into my ears. So I'm excited for your new album to come out and people to hear that. So what does it mean to you? Um, I saw just your description of it. It's the search for home at the very core of this song. And since you were born in India but grew up in San Francisco area, Bay Area, home is not necessarily a physical place.
Yeah.
It's in your heart. It's with people and memories. Um, and that's basically what the song is about.
Yeah, really. I think for me, there's always been the search for home and identity, and growing up away from the place I was born in. But in doing that, I really formed roots here in the United States as well. But through the search, it's always been like, there are these moments where you feel a deep sense of home, but sometimes those moments are fleeting and they come and go really quickly. So I think this song is about, what are the search or the yearning for those moments. And when you find them, how can you really kind of internalize them so they become a part of you? And I do believe that home is not necessarily physical, but really exists within yourself, and also within the deep connections you form with other human beings on whatever journey you're on. And I think that encapsulates what the song is about for sure.
Absolutely. Beautiful. And so what do you do to keep your voice so fresh and healthy? Do you have certain warm-ups or, certain things you drink ahead of time to help out your
Sure.
vocal?
So my formal training, as I've said, is in Carnatic music. So what I do every day is I kind of like do voice exercises for like 35 to 40 minutes in the morning. And then I try to practice for at least an hour, hour and a half later on in the day. And it's a really rigorous form in many ways. So as long as I stay consistent with my practice of that, my voice is normally in good shape. And I'm able to kind of like have the stamina vocally, and it does what the mind wants it to do. So that's kind of what I do. I try to like exercise every day. I box a little bit. So, that also just staying in shape. And then food wise, like the one thing that I've just toned down a little bit, and being Indian, it's a little hard, is just like spicy food. But that's something I try to avoid, just to like make sure there's like no acid reflux or whatever, but that is difficult because I do come from a culture that really values spice. So
Sure, sure. Or dairy. I've heard sometimes dairy can kind of,
yeah,
but
that messes
paneer
with
is
it a
like
little
one
bit.
of my
Yeah,
favorite foods ever. So
me
that
too,
would be hard to stay away from, right?
for sure.
Well, I'm sure interviews are taxing on your vocals as well, so I don't want to keep you too long.
Thank you.
So you can make sure you rest up for, I'm sure you've got other interviews lined up as well. But it was
Sure.
such a pleasure to speak with you, and thank you so much. Really looking forward to the new album out July 28th. And this your Do the Dance sounds great on our radio station here in Asheville, North Carolina.
Thank you
And
so much.
if you're ever here in the area, the East Coast, we've got some really great Indian restaurants too. So
I'm definitely gonna pull up over there. I've been wanting to come out to North Carolina for a bit. So yeah, for sure. And thank you so much for having me. This has been great.